Gentleman over here had a question, and your name, sir?
Ali Zamani. I'm living for the last 20 years in downtown. Most of you guys know me. Just to let you know, this is the question for foreign affairs policy. We as Canadians, by multiply our forces, went to the Iraq and promising innocent refugee camp, Iranian refugee camp, and we didn't keep our promise to keep them safe. When we leave the Iraq, we hand off our authorities to Iraqis, and Iraqi government attacked this camp twice. The first time 2 years ago, 11 killed, this time 34. Now, our taxpayer give the money ability to the government to send the troop to the Middle East and not keep the promise and genociding these people. When we have to look into our foreign policy and international law to obey. Thank you.
Did you have a question, sir?
Yeah, that's the question. When we have this time to stand beside the people, not the government, and condemning any genociding international.
Okay, I'm guessing the question is, does the government of Canada have an obligation to stand beside international refugees who are faced with genocide, in particular refugees in the nation of Iraq?
I believe we do have a responsibility to protect. I'm more familiar with the situation in Darfur, where we are standing by and allowing people to be massacred there too. We don't want another Rwanda. And we're seeing it playing out in place after place. And I think there's been a reticence on the part of Canada to take leadership. Canada had a role of not only averting disasters, and by that I mean human rights disasters, but creating the safe grounds for peacekeeping. But you can't keep peace until you create peace. So the diplomacy that we used to do, we're no longer doing. After that, it's peacekeeping. And then if there's problems, it is about saving and protecting refugees. And we have not done a good job in virtually every country in Africa and the Mideast that I know of. We have not stepped forward. It's like reluctance to do that, to not step in. And I think we should be brave.
Thank you very much, Michael Hunefeld of the Progressive Party of Canada, Progressive Canadian Party.
Canada's basic foreign policy principles should be the promotion of human rights, the protection of democracy, the protection of individual freedoms, freedom of expression, gender equality. These are the principles that at home as well as abroad, Canada must fight for. Now, these are principles, and a responsible Canadian government must always balance, when making policy, must balance principles with practical conditions and practical resources. Now, to the question, when should Canada intervene in a specific situation? We have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. We have certain principles, but we must take into account of what our resources are. And I believe that in foreign affairs, a responsible government must always use its power, whether economic, military, or diplomatic, in a prudent and cautious way in cooperation with multilateral institutions.
Thank you. Hetty Fry of the Liberal Party of Canada.
Thank you. I think the 4 Ds of Canadian foreign affairs is diplomacy, using diplomacy to help to create change. It's fostering democratic institutions and getting in there to make sure that democratic institutions are alive and well in many countries. The duty to protect, or the R2P as it's called, responsibility to protect. These things are all part of a tradition that came down from Pearson and has continued along, and I say with a certain amount of reticence that even under Brian Mulroney, these were kept true, these 4 Ds. this ability of Canada to keep that strong Smithsonian tradition. We have left that behind with this particular government. They pick sides. We can do a lot of things, as Mr. Zamani asked. We can look at how we use economic sanctions against a country. I remember we did that with South Africa. And I would have to say it was Brian Mulroney who led that fray to take about economic sanctions in South Africa. It worked. While on the ground, we were using developmental aid to help the citizens not to suffer and creating strong refugee movements to get people out of countries that are under siege. But we have to start now. We can no longer sit on our hands.
Thank you. Michael Hill of the Marxist-Leninist Party.
Yes, I believe that Canada is an obligatory society of the UN charters on refugees right there, and we would have an obligation under certain situations there where it was necessary to bring somebody in to protect them. So that's what I have to say right there.
Okay, thank you. Karen Shillington of the New Democratic Party.
Well, I do like the example of South African sanctions because that's something that did work. But it just seems not only Canada has lost its way, but I would even suggest the United Nations, these incursions, I don't know, 10 years in Afghanistan, and have we really solved the problem that we went in to solve? I miss the Canada that was known as a peacekeeping nation, and I would suggest that there are bigger issues here, as I say, that NATO and the United Nations don't seem to be making the best decisions in the international stage, and I think that Canada would be better doing economic sanctions and restoring the peacekeeping that we were so proud of for so many years.
Thank you very much, Karen. And finally, from the Pirate Party of Canada, Travis.
Okay, first of all, when it comes to especially things like genocide, just follow the money. If we want to look at drug war, the genocide gets largely funded by the Chinese. Why do we even ignore them? Because they're the Chinese. They're the largest growing economy in the world. We don't want to upset them. So we need to follow the money and say, you know what? We're going to hold you accountable, China. We don't care that you have so much money because you're still violating human rights, and that's not okay. And we need to be able to come out and say that because that's who we are. We're Canada. We're okay with calling it as we see it because we don't bend to one person or bend to the other. We just protect humans. Now, going into a location, like I said, it's not our place to invade sovereignty. But in the cases of genocide or in the cases of violence during democratic movements, we should be able to come. We should be able to set up hospitals or send doctors over and maybe send a security team with them so the doctors themselves are protected. But protect the people, hurt people from both sides, and heal people, because that's who we are. We're here to help the people.
Thank you very much, Travis McCray. Hoping we can get to everybody's questions. We've got a limited amount of time, a lot of questions. This gentleman here, what's your name, sir?
Brian Sproul.
Brian Sproul. Okay.
Some of the candidates on the stage have said that they oppose foreign military intervention, but right now Canada has over 1,000 troops fighting on behalf of the U.S. puppet Karzai government. Canada is involved in the bombing of Libya in violation of the UN Charter, and in the early 1950s Canada participated in the American War on Korea. So I'm asking each of the candidates, are you in favor of getting Canada out of NATO and out of NORAD?
A lot of foreign policy questions today, and I guess we'll start with Travis this time, from the Pirate Party.
I'm a dual citizen. I have my Canadian citizenship and I have my U.S. citizenship. The reason I moved to Canada full-time is because I wanted to move away from the United States. And it scares me to death that I got here and it's basically a bunch of conservatives who are wanting to turn Canada into the United States. The process of Americanization has to stop now.
We don't have policy that says get out of NATO and NORAD, but we have policy that says question our role in NATO and NORAD, and question the role of NATO and NORAD, period. So for example, we are very clear, get out of the NATO-led, US-led mission in Afghanistan. That doesn't make sense. It's not, that's about war. That's not about development or peace in any way, peacemaking. So not out, question what we're doing in there and what those actual alliances are doing.
Thank you. Michael Hunefeld of the Progressive Canadian Party.
I do not believe Canada should get out of NATO. I believe NATO is an extremely valuable institution that in the past was created to protect democracies from communism. And I believe Canada must work with NATO to strengthen NATO and to improve its efficiency and effectiveness. I do not believe Canada should get out of NORAD. NORAD is a valuable tool for the protection of North America. Now, I do believe that within NORAD, Canada should stand up for itself and should make sure that it exercises its decision-making independently. Canada should not simply go along with the United States automatically. Canada should exercise its own policy-making abilities within NORAD. Now, regarding Afghanistan, Libya, Korea, each of those cases is different. We must look at each one on a case-by-case basis. Korea, look at South Korea today. It is a prosperous, vibrant democracy. Where would South Korea be today if America and Canada had not intervened to protect South Korea in the 1950s?
Thank you very much. Amy Pride, the Liberal Party of Canada.
Thank you very much. I don't agree that we should get out of NATO and NORAD. I think we should stay there and be a leader. We should change the way things are done. We should speak out. We should take cases on a case-by-case basis. We should stand up for multilateralism through the United Nations. The United Nations is weak, but it's the only multilateral body we have. And in fact, we don't have to always follow through what the United States is doing. I agree with that. I think we have to stand up for our own sovereignty. Unfortunately, that has not happened under this Conservative government. We've just followed slavishly what the United States wanted us to do under George Bush. We did not go to war in Iraq because we believed in multilateralism. We believed that the United Nations had to make a decision about that. And we were not going to go just because one country said so. We are no longer that Canada. We are a Canada that is another state of the United States right now. And I'm concerned about that we've given up our sovereignty. And that is why we had, for the first time in our history, lost a seat at the Security Council. I want to apologize for slurring. I have an aphthous ulcer on the tip of my tongue. Every time I talk, it hurts, and so I'm kind of trying not to do it, and so I'm speaking funny. I'm sorry about that.
I didn't notice. I think you're doing a great job. To the Marxist-Leninist Party.
We're unequivocally opposed to membership in NATO and NORAD for Canada. NATO and NORAD, in the case of NATO, it's dominated by U.S. policy, and NORAD is simply an integrated arm of the U.S. in terms of aerospace protections. These two organizations do not help our country, and we should be self-sufficient in our self-defense.
Thank you. And Karen Shellington of the New Democratic Party.
Well, I'm going to be candid here. When I was asked to run with the NDP candidate, I said, gee, aren't we in favor of getting out of NATO? And there was a bit of a silence there. So our stand used to be that, and it has softened, which is kind of a change of the way the world is, no doubt. I encourage people for which that is an important issue for them, that we should get out of NATO, to join up with the NDP and bring that policy back. But in any event, what has happened through NATO is that we are losing our sovereignty, and NORAD, I really don't understand why we still have NORAD in a way. It is very much American driven, and I would like to see that change.
Thank you very much.